Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another ramble rant type thing about the whole Wizard of the Coast OGL scandal. I am so done with all of this. Anyway, let's go over to the desktop and see what they've said, and I'll try and keep it short this time. Okay, so there's been a flurry of activity the last few days from Wizard of the Coast. They've released 2 press releases and they've released a new draft OGL. Now this is the first one. There's a couple of things I want to go over in it, but I'm not going to read through it word by word. Basically, it starts off by apologising for their lack of communication, for releasing their draft OGL, or it getting released, and them not writing it properly, them not releasing that information to the community. And what they say they're going to do in going forward is they're going to release a few more draft OGLs, and they're going to ask people for commentary. They're going to do some surveys and get feedback so they can build the OGL which covers their needs in protecting them from NFTs and discriminatory language in OGL content, etc., but provides what the community wants as well. Now, there's a lot of people out there who will disbelieve this, who accuse everything that Wizard of the Coast say of being lies. Well, there's nothing they can say to convince you. So, okay, you're unconvinced and you will never be convinced. I think they're being fairly honest here because they didn't want to go through this. As I've said in previous videos, I think that Wizard of the Coast were quite happy in having a large community who are creating content to sell their books. They've got lots of people working for nothing, providing people for a reason for buying their books. We are the best advertising campaign out there because we're creating our videos, we're creating adventures, we are creating groups which people can play Dungeons and Dragons in. We're the best advertising campaign they could ever ask for, and they didn't want to drive that way. So they're being very, very honest that they don't want to upset us. Now, in response to people who have been calling me a corporate shill and all that, I'd like to point out that in the past 10 years, I have bought one Wizards of the Coast book. I have bought the Player's Handbook for 5th edition. I don't own a DMG, I don't own a Monster Manual, even though I have run lots and lots of campaigns of 5th edition, because I've never felt the need for anything more. So I am not their target audience. They are not wanting me because I don't buy anything anyway. So why would I be shilling for them? I don't use them. I guarantee that the people speaking out about Dungeons and Dragons probably have given Wizard of the Coast far more money than I have. Anyway, in here, here's what to expect. On or before the 5th, Friday, January 20th, we'll share our new proposed OGL documentation for your review and feedback. They'll open up a survey. The survey will remain open for 2 weeks. And it opened up yesterday, and it's staying open until the 3rd of February, my birthday. Nice little present. They've been doing everything as they said. Any changes to the OGL will have no impact on at least these creative efforts. They're being very clear. Video content, whether you're a commentator, streamer, podcast, live cast member, or any other video creator on platforms like YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, you have been covered by the Wizards fan content policy. The OGL doesn't and won't touch any of this. Your accessories for your own content. No changes will affect your ability to sell minis, novels, apparel, dice, and other items related to your creations, characters, and worlds. So if you've created your character and you want to print out t-shirts and sell people because it's in your live stream, you are allowed to do that. Non-published works, for instance, contracted services, you may publish your works that reference 5th edition content through the SRD. These aren't affected by the OGL. VTT content. Any updates to the OGL will still allow any creator to publish content on VTTs and still allow them to use OGL content on the platform. They seem to be allaying a lot of fears here. DM's Guild content, OGL 1.0a content. Nothing will impact any content you have published under OGL 1.0a. That will always be licensed under OGL 1.0a. Right, their language here is getting a bit confused, and when we actually go on to the OGL 2, we will see how it is still very confused. It does lay out the reality of the situation, but I can understand why people don't understand that. Your revenue, there will be no royalty or financial reporting requirements. Your ownership of your content, you will continue to own your content with no license back guarantee requirements. So they've scrapped all that part of it, although I didn't see that as too bad at all. I'm guessing a lot of people should be smiling, although I don't see that happening. They've also released this one the next day, starting the OGL playtest. 20 years, thousands of creators have helped grow the TTRPG community by using a shared set of game mechanics that are foundation for their unique worlds. We don't want that to change. And yes, they don't want to change it. As I said, we are their biggest marketing campaign, we're their biggest advertisers, because we go and talk about their product. We don't only buy their stuff, but we sell other people their stuff by creating worlds, adventures, talking about it, videos, everything, to advertise their one product. We're giving core D&D mechanics to the community through a Creative Commons license, which means they're fully in your hands. If you want to use quintessentially D&D content for the SRD, such as owlbears and magic missiles, 1.2 will provide you with a perpetual, irrevocable license to do so. It's a non-profit thing. Protect D&D's inclusive play experience. Well, I've talked about that before. Now, I'd like to correct my wording slightly on one of my previous videos. I talked about TSR 3 and Ernie Gygax. Right, I should have made clear Ernie Gygax set up TSR 3, but he has since left it. He sold it on to Justin Lanassa, I believe his name is. And Justin Lanassa is the one who's doing all the Star Frontier stuff, which has potentially racist and transphobic content. So while Ernie Gygax founded the company, and I find that a bit dodgy in itself, kind of living off his dad's name. But it's not him that's done all the worst stuff, which is why Wizards feel it needs to protect themselves against this content being connected to them. Because this version of Star Frontiers that TSR 3's released has all this discriminatory language in it, and Wizards is still selling original Star Frontiers material. So it's completely understandable why they want to protect themselves through whatever license they're released. Even though Star Frontiers is not covered by the OGL, they want to protect themselves potentially from another source of this problem turning up. OGL 1.2 will only apply to TTRPG content, not VTTs. Nobody needs to wonder or worry if it applies to anything else. It doesn't. Deauthorizing OGL 1. We know this is a big concern. Creative Commons license and open terms of 1.2 are intended to help with that. One key reason we have deauthorized, we can't use the protective option in 1.2 if someone can just choose to publish harmful, discriminating, or legal content under 1.0a. And again, any content you have already published under 1.a will always be licensed under 1.a. Right. Again, the language within the OGL 1.2 clarifies this, but this statement doesn't. It helps confuse things and helps people be worried. Because the way that words is that if you want to create something for Pathfinder, which was under the old version of the OGL, well, you're going to have to use this new one, which is passing a lot of control over to Wizards. That's not what it means at all. We will come to that, though. So, for completeness, sum up. Virtual tabletop policy, ownership disputes, you own your content. You don't give Wizards any license back. No hateful content or conduct. Create a product badge. And now for the actual documents. The Open Game License 1.2. So let's have a look at that. So here we are, for discussion purposes only, draft. Because this is a draft, it's very clearly that. So, we've got the SRD itself. On this page, we mainly talk about the rules of it, and they're talking about you being able to use this Create a Product badge. So this is very much allowing you to label your product as Dungeons & Dragons. And that's the huge advantage of the OGL. While lots of other companies have brought out OGLs, we've got the Modifius one for their 2D20 one that I talked about last time. We've got the Orc license, and we've got Free League Publishing who have brought out 2 different OGLs for 2 different games. There's dozens of versions of the OGL out there. The big advantage of doing the Dungeons & Dragons one is that everybody who plays Dungeons & Dragons is your market. If I go for an OGL, which allows me to create things for Free League's Dragonbane RPG, then I'm only selling to that market, which is much, much smaller. The advantage to selling to the Dungeons and Dragons market is it's huge. And that's what people want. And that's part of the danger I see with all these licenses coming out. That writers are going to go on to these. And while having lots of content for lots of games is something I love. I've got shelves filled with different games here. I absolutely adore that. Dungeons & Dragons is only a tiny part. But I wonder how many people are going to make a living out of selling to a game with only 20% of the market of Dungeons & Dragons, only 5% of the market of Dungeons & Dragons. If you're only selling a 20th or a fifth of your old sales, is that going to pay your bills and allow you to keep publishing stuff? This market fragmentation, I think, will lead to a lot more interesting content, which, as I said, is great for me. I love that kind of stuff. But I don't think it's great for people who want to make a living out of this. And we shall see where that goes. Notice of deauthorization of OGL 1. Again, the Open Game License is no longer an authorized license. You may not use that version of the OGL or any prior version to publish SRD content after effective date. Does not mean that any content previously published under that version needs to update to this license. Any previously published content remains licensed under whatever version of the OGL was in effect when you publish that content. Now, as I said, that's a bit unclear. But if we go down here to the next page, covered content. Our licensed content. This license covers any content in the SRD 5.1. So older versions of the SRD document for Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, which spins off onto Pathfinder, aren't covered by this OGL license. They still use the old one. So if you want to publish 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons stuff, you don't have to go by this license, because it is not covered by this license. This literally only covers 5.1, which is the current version. And as they update to later versions, it also covers that. It's very clear in here, but it's hidden away, and the language they've used other places, really I can see why people are concerned that they're deauthorizing the OGL. But as again questioned in the previous video, how does that affect people who release stuff under the OGL, which their content is nothing to do with Wizards of the Coast? As I mentioned, I'm pretty sure that OpenD6, which West End Games released their D6 system under, is covered by the OGL license. Now, how can Wizards of the Coast claim any ownership or control of old West End Games content? There's no way. So it was nonsensical that all OGL version 1 content would be covered by this. This literally only covers SRD 5.1 material and beyond. So I don't know whether that'll settle people's minds. The other element within this that I'd like to bring in, because this is all legal text, I've read through it. There's nothing which sets off too many alarm bells in my head. It reads very much like standard open licensing. There's a few things in here which I'm sure people will scream and rage at, but there's nothing terrible. It's only once we get on to the final page, so page 6 of the document, the Wizards of the Coast virtual tabletop policy. Now, I think there's confusion in here. I'll bring it to their attention when I do their survey, probably tomorrow. What is permitted under this policy? Using VTDs to replicate the experience of sitting around the table playing D&D with your friends. So displaying static SRD content is just fine, because it's like looking in a source book. You can put the text of Magic Missile up in your VTT and use it to calculate and apply damage to your target. And automating Magic Missile's damage to replace manually rolling and circulating is also fine. VTT can also apply Magic Missile's 1d4 plus 1 damage automatically to the target's hit points. You do not have to manually calculate and track the damage. So your wizard casts Magic Missile, you click on him, you click on what spell, it rolls the dice, and then you click on the enemy and it applies the damage, or you've targeted them ahead of time, however your particular VTT works. That's all fine. So much of what VTTs do are absolutely fine by this license. What isn't permitted are features that don't replicate your dining room table storytelling. If you replace your imagination with an animation of the magic missile streaking across the board to strike your target, or your VTT integrates our content into an NFT, that's not a tabletop experience, that's more like a video game. So you click on your character, you click on magic missile, you click on the target, and it shows an animation of the magic missile going and calculates out the damage and all that. They don't cover that. Well, to me, that's fine. It's a bit odd, but it's absolutely fine because I tend to miss those things anyway. I'm flicking to my character sheet, I'm looking up rules while other people are acting, so I don't get to see their spell effects go off. But one element that I'm wondering about is on VTTs where somebody casts like a wall of flame or a fireball which stays static for a while, burning an area. So you cast the spell Firewall, Wall of Fire, whatever it's called, and you draw up the line of flames on the map. And that stays there with a flickering flame effect to show it's fire. Now, if you were playing on tabletop, you'd be putting down a ruler or some indicator to show that that's where the wall of fire is. So the VTT showing that emulates that tabletop experience, as they suggest. But it also is kind of like the animation of the magic missile that they say isn't okay. So if it's like a fiery effect, you know, animated flames showing your fire wall of fire, well, is that going against the tabletop experience? Can it only show a static indicator? This is very grey area, and I would like that clarified in the license. But that's the only thing that bothers me, is that this license is so easy to read that it leaves a lot of grey areas, which is kind of what they didn't want to do. But apart from that, this looks absolutely fine. It's telling you, you know, you can use owlbears out of the OGL and put their stats into a VTT, but you can't copy the images out of the monster manual and put that in, because that artwork is protected. Seems really obvious to me. Just as you can't use that imagery on a website. They make it very clear here. If you're a VTT operator, owner-operator who supports OGL products on your platform, you have the same obligations for VTT content that any other website owner-operated has for copyrighted material under the DMCA. So if it's copyrighted material and people request it comes down, you've got to take it down. It's as simple as that. This isn't a terrible license. It needs a little clarification, in my opinion, but it's not the hate storm that people are going on about. Now, one of the big stories that's going on, and I am starting to waffle on, and this is starting to drag again, but people are concerned about this story that D&D Beyond is going to have a $30 cost to it. But this is the top tier of what they're offering. So you'll still get access at lesser levels. But at the top tier, you will get, apparently, an artificially intelligent dungeon master, so you can single play, or you can get a couple of people together and get it to run your games for you. That's kind of cool. You're also going to get monthly updates and extra content. So if you're paying out your $30 a month, they're giving you stuff. They are selling you something you might want. And if you don't want that stuff, don't pay the $30. It's really quite obvious to me. But anyway, as I said, I was trying to keep this short and I've let myself waffle on as usual. So let's end it there. As always, thank you very, very much for watching. But most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.